ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. It's been a day of important signposts for the nation's economy. The stock market closed at an all-time high. The government's forecast of future economic activity suggests the overall economy should be strong in the months ahead. And President Reagan has decided he will no longer urge the Japanese to hold back on the number of cars they ship to this country. At the White House, here's ABC's Steve Shepard.
The Reagan administration says ending voluntary restraints on Japanese auto exports to the United States will benefit both the American car-buying public and the U.S. economy as a whole.
The consumers will save about $4 billion a year by taking off the voluntary restraints. There'll be that much more competition.
But critics argue that lifting restraints will have a disastrous impact on employment in the automobile and related industries.
We're talking about on the order of upwards of 1 million people in this country that could lose their jobs if Japan takes full advantage of this invitation from President Reagan to flood more of their cars in here.
Administration officials say that's not so, that job losses will be minimal. Whatever the job loss, President Reagan's decision was clearly made with an eye to the current health of the U.S. auto industry. White House spokesman today pointed out that American car makers sold 11.5 million cars and trucks last year and earned record profits in both 1983 and 84. President Reagan says today's action is an effort to promote free and fair trade between the United States and Japan. But White House officials admit that in response, Japan has not yet promised to lift any of the trade barriers it maintains against a variety of U.S. products. Steve Shepard, ABC News, the White House.
The voluntary quotas or restraints on Japanese cars will expire at the end of the month. For what that may mean to the price of a car and to the American worker, here is our economics editor, Dan Courts.
Like a lot of other would-be car buyers, Greg Bartels is looking forward to the end of restrictions on Japanese auto imports.
Hopefully it will bring competition into effect, and the more cars there are, the better deal you find you get.
Since they couldn't send all the cars they wanted, the Japanese have been shipping high-priced models loaded with extra cost options. That meant big profits on each car sold, but because he couldn't get enough, dealer Tom Nemeth did not like the voluntary quotas.
We did not have the volume to satisfy all our customers. For instance, right now in his showroom, well, we have about 5-6 Nissan cars available in stock.
A variety of studies have concluded that the import limits, by cutting the number of lower-priced models and giving Detroit more room to raise its prices, have added between $400 and $2,000 to the average price of all cars on the U.S. market. American car makers dispute those figures, but warn that the end of restrictions will bring a wave of price cutting by the Japanese that will give them an even bigger share of the market. But to fight back, some executives say they'll build more cars abroad, or not at all.
Aside from going where you can get costs down and hopefully compete on whatever the rules are, you may have to cut back on some programs completely, not do them here anyplace.
All this, according to the United Auto Workers, will mean the loss of 200,000 jobs in the U.S. auto industry.
I was very much concerned for several weeks now that the president would do exactly what he did today, and that's, I think, to kick the American workers and America itself in the butt.
Oh, we'll be out again. It'll be no time we'll be out on the street. They'll be laying off, just like it did before.
The more cars they bring in, the less cars we're going to sell.
A big loss of jobs would generate a lot of congressional support for mandatory quotas. So even with the end of voluntary limits, a wide-open market may not last very long. Dan Courts, ABC News, New York.
In other money matters, as we said earlier, it was a big day on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrials closed at a record high today, up more than 15 points in very heavy trading. For the week as a whole, stocks gained more than 23 points. Later in this broadcast, Secretary Schultz and Nicaragua's President Ortega, they're going to meet tomorrow. Designer drugs, they are new, they are deadly, and they are legal. And Indiana University's Bobby Knight, the coach who needed to cool off.
This is World News Tonight, brought to you by Benihana.
This man is responsible for the most successful Oriental restaurants in America. For 20 years, if you wanted great Oriental food, you'd go to him.
Now, I'll come to you.
With 8 Benihana frozen Oriental restaurant classics. Oriental vegetables with shrimp, sirloin pepper steak, sweet and sour chicken. And they taste like restaurant food because they're made like restaurant food.
Your place or mine, it's up to you.
Benihana frozen Oriental restaurant classics. We were either going to make them great or we weren't going to make them at all.
Incredibly, 90% of all major banks make their international payments through one computer network from Burroughs Corporation. Every day, billions of dollars are transferred in seconds around the world. And after more than 300 million transactions, the network has never once broken down. Reliable systems like this are just one example of Burroughs' commitment to be the best computer company in the world.
There was a blistering attack on the news media today from North Carolina Senator Jesse Helms. The occasion was a conference of conservative political action groups in Washington, and ABC's Carol Simpson was there.
Senator Helms escalated his campaign against what he calls the elite media, powerful national news organizations, which he said are not only unfair and untrustworthy, but also un-American.
The real threat to freedom, the real threat to freedom of speech, and the real threat to our constitutional system is on our TV screens every evening and on the front pages of our newspapers every day. These newspapers and magazines and television programs are produced by men and women who, if they do not hate America first, they certainly have a smug contempt for American ideals and principles.
Senator Helms said conservatives have a job to do, which includes seeking new laws which would force the media to be more responsible.
That task would be the restoration of the right of the people to know both sides, to know the truth, undiluted, uncontrived, and unburdened by the biases of the elite media. That's all I'm asking.
But Senator Helms is really asking for more than that. He's actively encouraging efforts by conservatives to take over CBS. Carol Simpson, ABC News, Washington.
And it appears that Senator Helms is not the only person thinking about a takeover of CBS. There is Ted Turner, the owner of the cable news network. ABC's Lynn Scher has a report on that possible takeover attempt.
As he left for a weekend at his South Carolina plantation today, Ted Turner was uncharacteristically silent about what could be his latest business venture. But ever since he created the cable news network as part of his Turner Broadcasting System, Turner's made no secret of his desire to play in the big leagues. And right now, his pitch seems to be to CBS. Statistically, the two companies couldn't be further apart. Last year, CBS's revenues were nearly $5 billion, with profits of $212 million. TBS earned $280 million, with profits of $9 million. One analyst says it's like the minnow trying to swallow the whale, but it's possible.
It's not at all difficult anymore for a little company to buy a big company and, in effect, pay back the debt with the big company's resources.
Wall Street is taking the possibility seriously. Based on the expectation, CBS's stock went up more than 7 points in the last 2 days, and it comes on the heels of that other CBS takeover bid. Senator Jesse Helms of South Carolina has been supporting a group called Fairness in Media that's trying to buy up CBS stock to stop what they call the liberal bias of its news division. Today, Helms wouldn't say whether he and Turner are working together.
Well, I'll tell you that Ted is a doer, and he's a good friend of mine.
CBS has rejected overtures from Turner in the past, and today they issued a statement that they'd had no recent discussions with him about any plans he might have. Moreover, a takeover bid would also have to be reviewed by the Federal Communications Commission.
Keep in mind this is a very unique situation because you're primarily talking about a regulated industry. We've never had a hostile takeover of a network.
CBS has already responded to the Fairness in Media assault by filing a lawsuit complaining the group has not disclosed its true political purpose. And CBS has begun putting together a team to fight any unfriendly takeover, whether from a minnow or another whale. Lynn Scher, ABC News, New York.
Well, the subject of taking over the network and this criticism of networks and the national media in general is of considerable interest to our commentator, George Will. George, where would you like to start?
Peter, I think in the 19th century, an entrepreneur like Ted Turner would have wanted to buy a railroad or a steel company. Information systems like television networks are the glamour industries of our time, and that explains why there's so much resentment, frankly. Resentment that was visible 15 years ago when Agnew made the famous speech in Des Moines. Americans resent journalists for the same reason they resent lawyers and doctors. These are elites that Americans are dependent upon, and no one likes to be dependent. Let's give Jesse Helms this for what he says. The elite media are different. There was a poll taken not too long ago that showed in 1972, when McGovern was losing everything but the District of Columbia and Massachusetts, he carried the elite media by 81%. I dare say, if I can offer a personal remark, Peter, that I'm the only person on network television regularly who in 1964 voted for Barry Goldwater.
Well, let me make a point. George, you are sometimes regarded as a conservative commentator. Senator Helms appears to touch chords in what is sometimes called conservative America. Do you agree with him?
Well, I don't, for two reasons. First of all, I think the experience is that the conservative viewpoint can get out. Second, it seems to me he's talking about extending government regulation to an industry specifically protected by the First Amendment. But he does have the point that, in fact, there ought to be something in journalism that says good news is news. It's not satisfactory to say that we don't report the planes that land safely. In fact, the good news about American society is news and should be reported.
George, thank you very much. George Will's commentary from Washington this evening. When we come back, President Ortega of Nicaragua and Secretary of State Schultz. Good news, they've agreed to meet tomorrow.
When a hurricane this strong hit Houston, Houston found out you need an insurance company this strong behind you. Within hours, an Aetna task force was coming, over 100 strong, from round the country, assigned to the hardest hit, paying 1,000 claims a day and more, going the extra mile to put the people, the companies, the schools back in business.
Aetna, we're glad we met you.
The flavor I love best.
Wholesome real cheese.
The texture so supreme.
Real cheese is made from real milk.
The taste that's dairy fresh.
With no artificial flavors.
Oh no, you can't take that away from me.
Imitation cheese doesn't stack up to the pure, natural goodness of real cheese.
Oh no, you can't take that away.
Make your meal sing with real cheese.
From me.
It's Chrysler Plymouth's Thank You America celebration on the best six-passenger car value, Plymouth Reliant Super K. To thank you for our best year ever, we're offering participating dealers automatic transmission at no extra cost. These savings may be passed on to you. You could save up to $439, backed by a 5-year or 50,000-mile protection plan. The 550 Reliant Super K.
Thank you, America.
A meeting has now been set for tomorrow between Secretary of State George Shultz and the President of Nicaragua, Daniel Ortega. The site is an unusual one. Both Mr. Shultz and Mr. Ortega are in Uruguay for the inauguration of a new president and to mark the end of a decade of rule by the Uruguayan armed forces. As ABC's John McWethy reports, just setting up the meeting was a bit complicated.
It was supposed to be a day to celebrate the inauguration of Uruguay's first democratically elected president in 14 years, Julio Sanguinetti. But amidst all of the festivities, the United States and Nicaragua were involved in a dramatic sideshow, with both nations cautiously moving to open up the dialogue again after weeks of increased tension. Representing Nicaragua was President Daniel Ortega, who ever since he arrived yesterday has been greeted by wildly enthusiastic crowds, chanting his name as though he were about to be named president of Uruguay. This country has a strong socialist and communist political tradition. Representing the U.S. was Secretary of State Schultz, who kept a far lower profile as he moved through meetings and ceremonial events during the day. It has taken several full days of public posturing and private negotiations for Schultz and Ortega to agree to sit down and talk. They finally did agree to meet tomorrow morning, but both sides admit they are still miles apart in their thinking. The dismal state of relations between the U.S. and Nicaragua were in sharp contrast to the mood in this city today. While Nicaragua is demanding a permanent end to U.S. support for guerrillas that are undermining its economy, the U.S. is demanding that Nicaragua remove its Cuban and Soviet advisors, reduce the size of its military, and give its people their basic freedoms. These are demands by both sides which have in the past been totally ignored, a fact that a meeting here in Montevideo tomorrow morning during inauguration weekend is not likely to dramatically change. John McWethy, ABC News, with Secretary of State Schultz in Uruguay.
Overseas now, the police in Northern Ireland have mounted an intensive search for the men who attacked a police station yesterday and killed 9 policemen. The Irish Republican Army, which claims credit for the attack, says it demonstrates their ability to strike where and when they decide. As ABC's Mike Lee reports, the IRA knew exactly what time to attack.
A prefabricated dining hall was blasted into thousands of splinters. A homemade mortar shell had scored a direct hit as 20 or so police officers were having their evening meal. Other shells landed throughout or near the police barracks.
There are cars that are parked there, the police's own cars with the security barriers. They were just blown to smithereens. They were all over the place. I saw 4 bodies being taken away. I don't know whether they were living or dead. Nobody knew at that stage what was going on.
The explosive shells were launched electronically from a familiar IRA weapon, crudely made metal tubes mounted on this stolen truck from a distance of only 200 yards. 9 rounds were fired, only 1 did the killing.
A thoroughly indiscriminate weapon, and that again says something about the character and aims of the people who use these weapons.
Only 11 days ago, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher urged the U.S. Congress to help discourage private American donations to the IRA. Was the Newry bombing a propaganda counterpunch?
The IRA probably had that planned before they even knew that Mrs. Thatcher was visiting America. It's just that there's an ongoing war situation here.
I don't know how they can live with their conscience. I don't know how they could go to bed last night. It's terrible. It's awful. My sympathy goes out to all their families.
Mike Lee, ABC News, Newry, Northern Ireland.
When we come back, the New York subway gunman Bernard Goetz. Some of his supporters may be having second thoughts.
It started in 1933 with our first electric. Then came typing that looked like printing. The revolutionary Selectric. And Selectrics that correct mistakes. 1984. IBM introduces the Selectric System 2000. The Wheelwriter typewriters and the Quiet-Writer typewriter. A new generation of typewriters from the company that makes the typewriters secretaries prefer most.
It's a wonderful feeling when you start the day with Yoplait breakfast yogurt.
Falling in love again. Oh, yes, it's true.
Breakfast yogurts, walnuts, wheat grain, and real fruit.
What am I to do? I can't help it.
They're so chewy and substantial. Yoplait breakfast yogurt, now in 2 new flavors, sunrise peach and strawberry banana.
Falling in love again.
Thanks a lot, Citibank. You had to make your Visa and MasterCard better than other banks. Just by using them, we earned bonuses called Citi Dollars. They could have saved us up to 40% on things like color TVs, VCRs. But my husband thought we should use ours for something a little more down to earth.
Are you ready, Wendy? It's your turn to beam us up. Now give her all she's got.
Visa and MasterCard from Citibank. It's the bank that makes them better.
In the beginning, American Airlines brought you low Super Saver fares. Now American goes beyond Super Savers. American Airlines presents Ultimate Super Savers. Good to every American Airlines destination in the continental U.S. Discounts up to 70%, giving you fares as low as $39 to $129. Ultimate Super Savers. Whoever thought we'd go this far?
It has been more than 2 months now since Bernard Goetz shot 4 young men in a New York City subway. He said at the time he thought they were going to rob him. Goetz received a great deal of public support for his action, not to mention publicity. 2 months later, some new facts made public in the case may be influencing the way Mr. Goetz is perceived. Here's ABC's Stephen Gear.
The so-called subway vigilante is a hero to many Americans, but the perception of Bernhard Goetz may be changing. Manhattan District Attorney Robert Morgenthau says he's considering a new indictment for attempted murder if new evidence becomes available for a second grand jury. In January, a grand jury indicted Goetz only on weapons charges. Just made public is evidence that first grand jury did consider. A police arrest report quoting Goetz as saying he went up to one of the 4 youths he had shot, saw no blood, said, "You don't look too bad, here's another," and shot the subject a second time. That reported quote has provoked a call for the district attorney's resignation from lawyers for the wounded youths.
People now are beginning to understand what kind of a monster this man was, who would go into a subway train and do the acts that he did.
Since the shooting, New York News columnist Jimmy Breslin has consistently attacked Goetz and has received quantities of hate mail for calling Goetz a racist.
What are we talking about here? He shot 4 guys, 2 of them in the back, 1 of them in the side. The only reason he hit him in the side was the kid hadn't fully turned. And the last time he bent over the kid and said, "Gee, you don't look that bad at all. Let me fix you." and he fired a fifth into him. If they'd been white, this guy'd be under the jail. The grand jury would have tortured him.
Getz's lawyer denies his client is a racist and has a different version of the shooting.
They suddenly flinched and turned, and they got a bullet in the side of the back. This all happened within a space of 3, 4, 5 seconds. And so there was no time for him to reflect. He was acting, as he himself has said, he snapped. He was acting like a cornered animal, so fighting for survival. And what he did in examining a man and then shooting again, he still doesn't know if any of the other three are going to be out to get him.
In the subways, perceptions of Getz are still mixed.
Well, I feel he was right for defending himself.
But why wasn't it, made public that he did go back and, shoot the guy who was lying on the ground again?
Today, Getz asked ABC News, why are so many people passing judgment before they've been exposed to all the facts? Stephen Gear, ABC News, New York.
In general terms, there is a very close connection between urban crime and drug abuse. The FBI estimates that about half of all street crime is drug-related, often committed by young addicts seeking money for a fix. Most are addicted to drugs like heroin or cocaine. But lately, drug enforcement authorities have been concerned about a new type of synthetic drug produced in laboratories. They are known as designer drugs. And here's ABC's Ken Walker.
There's so much cocaine coming in these days that authorities are using military tactics to control it. A record amount of heroin is flooding the country, and addiction is at an all-time high. But now, chemists here are producing heroin without poppies, cocaine without coca leaves, and a variety of other illegal drugs entirely from scratch. They're known as designer drugs. They're cheaper, more potent, more deadly, and they're legal to make and to use.
The first ones to try them are the addicts in the street. In that sense, they really are guinea pigs, and they're playing a form of Russian roulette, in my opinion, only the bullets they're aiming at their brains are chemical ones, not lead ones.
This woman was hit by one of those chemical bullets, and she's dying. After only one experiment with the drug MPTP just over 2 years ago, her brain aged another 50 years, and she's been paralyzed with Parkinson's disease. This addict uses a heroin substitute that's blamed for 77 deaths.
I used it because it was cheaper. I got a more intense high out of it.
Scientists still don't know what Anderson Mitchell took last year that left his limbs twitching uncontrollably. He thought it was synthetic heroin, but his doctors call it Drug X. And state officials are concerned they may be on the verge of an outbreak of catastrophic ailments.
Are people going to get lung cancer? Are they going to have brain damage? Are they going to be crippled? I think those are things that are going to happen as people experiment with designer.
The government has new power to outlaw drugs immediately rather than the months it used to take. But drugs are banned by specific molecular signatures, and an infinite number of legal drugs are possible with only minor variations.
We hope with the added controls we're going to place on it that we can keep the problem to California and then eliminate it from California.
PCP, or angel dust, started in a California chemist lab too. It's now in all 50 states and, of course, illegal. And despite the government's new power, designer drug makers have just started marketing a legal variation of that. Kenneth Walker, ABC News, Los Angeles.
When we come back, Indiana University coach Bobby Knight, a Knight whose armor is a bit tarnished.
Now that I know that the cost of tuition isn't going to sideline my college plans, I can really enjoy my last year of high school.
Introducing the new GI Bill and the new Army College Fund. If you qualify, you can sign up now, join in July, and earn over $25,000 for college while you serve America.
All that you can be.
Find out more about the new GI Bill and the new Army College Fund from your Army recruiter.
Find your future in the Army.
You'd love to buy a new house, but you can't find a buyer for the house you're in. So you're trapped, locked in, caught in a house you can't sell. That's why you need the Seller's Security Plan from ERA Real Estate. If we don't sell your house, we'll buy it. There is a difference in real estate companies. ERA Real Estate, a part of the Commercial Credit Financial Network.
New business. Chair recognizes Brother Lampard.
Yeah, I got a question about this beer that Brother Hollowell's been buying for the lodge.
This expensive brew, Meister Brew?
According to the guys down to the plant, It's not expensive. Just tastes expensive.
Oh?
So what's Hallowell doing with all the money he claims to spend on beer?
Well, let's just ask him. Hallowell? Hey, where's Hallowell? Hallowell.
Hi, Hallowell.
Meisterbrow, it only tastes expensive.
Tonight on Nightline, New Zealand is backing out of a mutual defense treaty by banning American nuclear ships. Ted Koppel examines if an ally can have it both ways. And Sunday on This Week with David Brinkley, the new Mideast peace initiatives. Watch Koppel tonight, Brinkley Sunday.
And finally here this evening, the basketball coach Bobby Knight. A great many of you will remember he coached the U.S. Olympic basketball team to a gold medal in Los Angeles. Well, this winter, Knight is back at his usual post coaching Indiana University. And as ABC's Dick Schaap reports, it has been a long and controversial winter.
Against the bench and against Bob Knight.
When ordinary people surrender in an athletic event, they throw in a towel. When Bobby Knight surrendered the other day, he threw in a chair, right past one of the referees.
That was my, I guess, ultimate gesture at saying, hey, you guys have got me.
Even Knight himself knew the chair throwing was dumb and indefensible.
As I'm doing, I know that it's wrong.
And if there are two things Bobby Knight hates, they are stupidity and a weak defense. The officials ejected Knight, the Big Ten threatening suspension, may place him on probation, and a state representative called upon the Indiana legislature to censure him. Bitter punctuation to a frustrating season that had followed Knight's finest hour, the Olympic championship for the United States basketball team he coached. After 17 months of almost constant basketball, Knight was tired, physically ill, on the brink of pneumonia, and drained by a college season that had begun with great expectations, followed by keen disappointments. He benched his regulars one night and kicked a top player off the team for not living up to academic standards, but nothing helped.
I haven't done any better at getting us out of it than the players have. I really don't like to feel badly about my coaching, and I don't feel good about my coaching.
What you people have not developed is the idea that you want to win.
It is his passion to be successful consistently. He has won 76% of his games and 2 national titles that makes Knight fight off temptations to give up college coaching.
You know, I'd be less than honest if I didn't say to myself sometimes, what am I doing this for?
Last night, as Indiana defeated Minnesota and ended a 3-game losing streak, Knight was, by his standards, a model of decorum. Even though he often rose off the Indiana bench, which was bolted to the floor, he threw nothing more damaging than words at the officials and at his players. It was the 566th game of Knight's college coaching career, and it was the 565th in which he did not throw a chair. Dick Schaap, ABC News, Minneapolis.
That's our report on World News Tonight. Tomorrow, Kathleen Sullivan and World News Saturday. I'm Peter Jennings. For everyone at ABC News, have a good weekend and good night.
From ABC, this has been World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
This woman has appeared in the world's most glamorous magazines.
You see the whole layout in my head. You like jazz, you want it to help underprivileged kids. Am I right or am I right? I will bet the house that you were a Miss March.
A Miss what?
Moonlighting, a romantic comedy premiering this Sunday at 9/8 Central.
The law offices of Bart Durham are staffed with a team of people who are dedicated to helping people like you. Over 15 employees, including 5 qualified attorneys, who use advanced equipment and techniques to provide help when you need it. Whether your problem is simple or complex, you can rely on Bart Durham and Associates. Bart Durham and Associates, Parkway Towers, Nashville.
Frying up sausage takes me back to when I was a young'un.